You know that feeling when you finally decide to splurge on a budget gaming rig, only to discover a few weeks later that the frame rates dip the moment you pop a newer title onto the screen? It's the kind of buyer's remorse that makes you wonder whether you're better off waiting a little longer and shelling out a bit more. I've been there, and that's why I'm taking a close look at the Kinupute mini gaming PC before you decide if it's worth the extra cash or just another sleek box that looks good but can't keep up when the heat turns up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the core of any gaming machine, the CPU and GPU combo. Kinupute packs an Intel Core i5-12400F, a 6-core, 12-thread processor that sits comfortably in the 2.5 to 4.4 GHz range. Paired with an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060 with 12 GB of GDDR6, you're looking at a setup that in most benchmarks sits squarely in the smooth 1080 Firefresh category, with occasional dips when you crank up ultra settings in very demanding titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Red Dead Redemption 2. In my own testing, the system handled 1080p at 144 Hz on titles like Valorant and Fortnite without breaking a sweat, and it kept most AAA games stable around 60 frames per second if you dial back a few shadows and particle effects. That's the sweet spot for most gamers who want a fluid experience without constantly tweaking settings. What makes the Kinupute Mini different from a typical mini PC is the amount of room it leaves for future upgrades. It has 2 DDR5 SODIMM slots, and the spec sheet says you can reach up to 64 GB of RAM. That's a massive headroom if you ever need to add more memory for streaming or heavy multitasking. The storage is a 2 TB M.2 PCIe 4.0 SSD, which translates to rock-solid load times think under 5 seconds for most modern games. In practice, that means you can have your favorite titles installed side by side and still get quick jumps between them. The dual LAN ports and Wi-Fi 6E give you flexibility whether you're on a wired connection at home or trying to squeeze every last drop of bandwidth out of a wireless router. Now, let's step into a real-world scenario. Imagine you have a small home office or a cramped dorm room where space is at a premium. The Kinupute fits into a space about the size of a large printer, and you can mount it behind a monitor or tuck it under a desk. The 4-display capability is a nice touch. You can actually drive up to 4 monitors simultaneously, and the 8K output capability isn't just a bragging right. It means you can plug in a high-resolution 4K TV for a console-like couch gaming session without needing a separate HDMI splitter. I tried it with a dual-monitor setup for both gaming and work, and the lack of lag when dragging a window from a game screen to a spreadsheet was pleasantly surprising. But there are trade-offs worth noting before you get too excited. The compact chassis has limited airflow compared to traditional tower cases. Kinupute does list an active heat dissipation solution, but in a continuous marathon session, say, a 6-hour raid in World of Warcraft, you'll notice the fans kicking up to higher RPMs, which brings a noticeable whine. It's not a catastrophic overheating event, the temperatures stay within safe limits, but the acoustic footprint can become a distraction if you're used to a near-silent tower. For a bedroom setup where you also want a quiet environment for sleep, that's something to keep in mind. Another practical consideration is the lack of a built-in optical drive. This isn't a surprise for a mini PC, but if you still rely on physical game discs or need to install software from a DVD, you'll need an external USB optical drive. That adds an extra peripheral and a bit of desk clutter, something you might overlook until you reach for a game you only own on disc. Who should buy this machine? If you're a gamer who lives in a tight space, wants a system that can handle 1080p high refresh or 1440p on medium-high settings, and appreciates the ability to upgrade RAM or storage down the line, the Kinupute Mini checks a lot of boxes. It also makes sense for content creators who need a solid GPU for light video editing or 3D modeling and want a compact workstation that doesn't dominate the floor. The dual LAN and Wi-Fi 6E are also helpful if you run a small home server or need a reliable connection for streaming gameplay. Who should skip it? If you're chasing ultra-high settings at 4K, or you plan to run modern AAA titles with maxed-out ray tracing for long stretches, you'll likely feel the limits of the i5-12400F and RTX 3060 sooner rather than later. Likewise, if you're a hardcore modder or someone who expects a tower-style chassis with multiple GPU slots for future SLI configurations, this mini PC won't satisfy those expectations. Users who need a built-in DVD drive for legacy software or who are extremely noise-sensitive may also